This is Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, brought to you by the Iowa Soybean Association, your daily recap of the information that affects Iowa's farmers, producers, and consumers, right here in the heart of the heartland. With reports from our award-winning broadcast team of Dustin Hoffman, Riley Smith, and Mark Magnuson. Now, from the IARN studios in Des Moines, here's Dustin Hoffman.
Well, good day, everyone, and welcome to Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Dustin Hoffman. Today is Thursday, February the 1st, 2024. Boy, did January just fly on by, but here we are. Coming up a little later on the program, we'll run down a few of the news headlines, including a new program announcement from the Iowa Department of Agriculture and Land Stewardship, and also USDA's guidelines on how to have a food-safe football party coming up next week for the championship game. But first, let's go ahead and run down the markets right now. It's time now for the Ag Matters PM Closing Market Summary, your source for market analysis and settlement prices from the day's trade in Chicago, courtesy of the folks at agmarket.net. Well, we're at the end of another trading day, and it's time to talk with Ross Baldwin of agmarket.net. And Ross, I know we had a rough start to the day on the overnight trade. How did the grain shake out here by the end of the day?
Hey, Dustin, thanks for having me. Corn and beans ended the day on a softer note. Corn was 1 to 2 lower. Soybeans were 14 to 20 lower also. And over in the wheat market, it was mixed. Chicago wheat was up a nickel on the nearby. Kansas City wheat was down a couple.
So what is it that was putting the pressure? What's been putting the pressure on the grains here lately?
We saw a decent rally here across corn and beans here the last couple of days. And my opinion is really with January month end taking place and the funds holding big short positions across the grains, I really think it wasn't much more that rally. Unfortunately, it wasn't much more than really end of the month profit taking across the corn and bean markets. And we start the new month out today and have some pretty sharp losses. You could say beans found a little strength here a couple days ago and even late last week on some drier weather, especially down in Argentina as they're wrapping up or getting close to the end of their soybean growing season. But there is some, they are scheduled to stay kind of hot and dry over the next week or so. But today there was some moisture thrown in for the extended forecast for Argentina. And Brazil's kind of mixed their weather, but they don't got as long to go on their growing season here for soybeans. So you just the weather continues to be the main driver. So we also had some poor bean exports for the weekly announcement here this morning for soybeans. They were marketing year low, and so that really weighed on them after that announcement came out, or that report came out at 7:30 this morning.
So, what's been the main driver? Is it just our price difference to us and Brazil for the beans? And I know that Brazil's got them right now. This is traditionally not our huge bean selling season, but, we have carryouts of our grains that are still sitting pretty decent. I mean, what is it that we just can't move? Is it our cost?
Correct. It's absolutely the cost. We are extremely uncompetitive with South America on soybeans. Corn, we're not as bad on the corn side of things, but Argentina is more competitive than we are on corn. So it's going to be tough sledding for the U.S. export program here for both corn and soybeans.
So let's go to the livestock side of things. We know we got the cattle inventory report, and we know that pretty much the market had priced it in yesterday. We saw a few losses there. Looked like at midday last I had checked it, the cattle was trying to gain a lot of that back. Hogs had a good day yesterday. Were they able to hold on to some of that momentum that we saw earlier in the day and yesterday?
The cattle market was definitely where the fireworks were for the day coming out of that semi-annual inventory report. That report, it was pretty close in line with the guesses, I will say, but it was a bullish report. And in my opinion, the really bullishness came from the fact that the USDA made a revision to the all cattle and calves inventory number from last year. They revised that 2023 number lower to the tune, it was 433,000 head, the revision down they made. So that added some bullishness to the report that the market really wasn't expecting. So as 24, just say across the board, the numbers were 2% lower year over year. You're looking at some of the smallest herd sizes going back to 1951. So the U.S. beef cow herd has continued to decline, and we're looking at another year of decline through 2024 out into 25. And we haven't started the retention phase yet. We're still feeding plenty of heifers, and I think we'll talk more and start the retention phase here this fall. I've been in the camp of that for quite some time. That fall of 24, we'll start the retention phase, but you got to keep in mind that we rally this feeder market back to the highs of last year, which I really think we're going to. And some of these feeder prices have already been bringing the highs that they were at last year across the country in sale barns. But you throw in 9% interest and all-time feeder prices, I don't know that you see a huge retention again this year in 24. So the cattle markets, they have some strong fundamentals underneath of them, which we've seen the market rallying. So we ended the day, I mean, fats were 2 to 250 higher, feeders were 4 to 480 higher. And a lot of March feeder cattle are above their 200-day moving average. The deferred fat cattle contracts are above their 200-day moving average. So we're in good shape in the cattle markets.
All right, so swinging over to hogs, I know they said enjoyed an up day yesterday. Overall still having just a rough go, but seeing a few bright spots at least so far this year. But also have seen some pressure. I mean, what are we seeing today in this first day of February?
Hogs were a little bit weaker. February was down 55 cents. April was a little over $1 lower, but hogs they've had such a rally here recently, and it's really been more technical than anything. And from a technical standpoint, they settled back below the 200-day moving average today. April it's still well above the 200-day moving average. So I wouldn't write this hog market off just yet. The technicals still look like they're in good shape, and the livestock market in general between cattle and hogs. I know hogs, it's been tough sledding, but I do think you get out into the last half of 24 and the hog market, it will start shifting to where it's more positive. And I think you can see some more upside eventually in this hog market.
All right, for a lot of us have things to think about now with some of that information you've given us. If folks want to talk about some of their market strategy, whether they're livestock producers, whether they're grain producers, looking into the coming months, what's the best way to pick the minds of the folks at agmarket.net?
You can reach me directly at our office here in Anthon. It's 712-373-3276, or you can find any of us brokers at AgMarket at agmarket.net.
All right, well, Ross, we thank you so much for the insight, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks for having me, Dustin.
And that again was Ross Baldwin of agmarket.net. Let's take a look at the closing numbers. Those come to us courtesy from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network market screen. March corn was down a penny at $4.47 1/4. March soybeans down 19 cents at $12.03 1/4. Soy meal down $6.60 at $3.6170. Soy oil down 42 cents at $45.60. Chicago wheat up 6 1/4 at $6.01 1/2. Kansas wheat down 1 1/4 at $6.20 3/4. Minneapolis spring wheat up 3 3/4 at $6.96 even. Oats up 1 3/4 at $3.84 1/4. February live cattle up $2.40 at $179.75. March feeders up $4.72 at $244.87. Lean hogs were down 55 cents at $75.80. Pork cutouts down a nickel here today. They were at $88 even. Class 3 milk up 14 cents at $16.24. And that's been our ag market recap. We're going to take a short break and hear from our sponsor, the Iowa Soybean Association and the Soy Checkoff. And when we come back, we're going to run down some of the top stories in agriculture. This is Ag Matters PM.
Iowa Soybean Association is driven to deliver for Iowa's 40,000 soybean farmers. We're proud to provide objective agronomic research, a helping hand with soil and water stewardship, and timely industry news powered by the Soybean Checkoff. Learn more at iasoybeans.com.
Welcome back to AMPM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Dustin Huffman. Let's go ahead and run down some of the top stories in agriculture. Iowa Ag Secretary Mike Nag today announced that the Iowa Department of Agriculture and Land Stewardship is now accepting applications for the 2024 Specialty Crop Block Grant Program that'll be going on for the next month, ending on March 1st. The grant program is designed to support projects in the competitiveness of specialty crops and enhance them in Iowa by increasing the demand, yields, and awareness, It's administered by the Department of Agriculture. Projects must enhance the competitiveness of Iowa-grown specialty crops that benefit the industry as a whole and not directly benefit a particular product or single organization, institution, or individual. Eligible specialty crops include fresh and processed fruits and vegetables, tree nuts, dried fruits, as well as horticulture and nursery crops, including floriculture, livestock, and poultry are also, though, not considered specialty crops. Iowa's total allocation for the program this year is just over $368,000. The maximum amount of the subset is a $30,000 award. However, if it's determined that there weren't enough applications and qualified projects to be awarded, USDA and AMS will also reevaluate at its discretion to maybe adjust the maximum amount awarded per project on basis to utilize all the funding available. The contract options will be available for projects lasting 12, 24, and 30 months. Well, obviously, we know the big game is coming up on Sunday, and the USDA is reminding all of our consumers about food safety during your watch parties. Now, if you're going to be getting some food delivered to your area, make sure you've got somebody there to make sure it's set up and taken care of before the game. Place any food that's not being eaten immediately in a refrigerator. And then, of course, when you store leftovers, divide them into smaller portions into shallow dishes. That way, perishable foods will have a better chance of not accumulating much bacteria, and the temperature doesn't get too low, allowing bacteria to grow. You got about 2 hours of prep time before you really have to get that into the refrigerator. Now, of course, there is the danger zone, and that is usually considered anything between 40 and 140 degrees. Now, things, obviously, refrigerated products, cold products, can be below that 40-degree mark, and, of course, you've got about 2 hours, but hot foods need to be above 140 and can cool down rapidly and allow bacteria to multiply rapidly. Make sure you keep all the foods according to their safe temperatures by using either warming trays, chafing dishes, or slow cookers, and, of course, having ice packs or end ice for your cooler foods. Serve cold foods in small portions when we fill them, and place food in containers that are nestled in ice. And again, don't let your leftovers sit too long. About 2 hours is what you need to get them into the refrigerator, and then you get about 4 days roughly to use them where they're considered safe. Internal temperature of reheated leftovers should be right around 165 degrees, and of course measured with a thermometer, and reheat your liquid foods like soups and sauces up to a boil and then let them simmer back down. Of course, if you have safety questions, you can call the USDA Meat and Poultry Hotline at 888-674-6854 or go to ask.usda.gov from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Time and talk with a person on live chat. And that's been a couple of the news headlines here we're following at Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, and that's going to do it for the Iowa Ag Matters program. You can find all our content online at iowaagnet.com. Don't forget about our free market podcasts. They come out on Google, Amazon, Apple, Spotify, and Podbean. You can also find us on Facebook, X, LinkedIn, and on our YouTube channel. From the IARN studios in Des Moines, I'm Dustin Huffman. For Riley Smith and Mark Magnuson and Andy Peterson, we thank you for watching. This has been Ag Matters PM.